So, hello everybody. I see that the audience is not very numerous, but I hope that on video recording other participants will follow this important presentation. I will speak about the graduation thesis. As you know, everybody on the curricula of cybersecurity has to complete his study with a bachelor thesis or graduation thesis. My name is Thomas Leppikult. You can call me on this number or write me messages on this address. Until now, I have managed the process of graduation thesis. That is because I am speaking here. The first slide of mine, what is the thesis at all? Here are some positive points that prescribes an excellent thesis. First, in each thesis must be an independent research of the students. One very famous academician of Estonian Academy said that on each defense, show me these 2 lines in your dissertation for which you are applying for the degree. That is a very important question, and you have to be ready to answer this question. What is your original contribution to the knowledge you have done during your thesis writing? So you have to write an independent research and to have the clear result. Next, you have addressed a timely or novel topic. That is, your topic of your thesis can't be too old. For example, on the field of databases, in the earlier times there were many systems of old databases. For example, DBase, Foxbase, so on, that are not live until now and very old-fashioned. That is not good idea to choose composing the database using FoxPro, so on. That is not the novel topic. You have do the appropriate analysis of the problem you have posed during your analysis part, during the first part of your work. That is, the review of alternative ways must be analyzed, and the comparative analysis also of all the methods you have used, or principally you can use analysis of the tools you have used, and so on. So, generally speaking, the graduation must be analytical work. Without this analytical part, this is not the thesis at all. Some very common mistake, somebody has something programmed, generating thousands of lines of code and thinks that is a graduation thesis. But unfortunately not. This is not the graduation thesis. There is no analytical part. So the method, next point. The methods, generally speaking, they are the ways of solving some particular task. To name some methods, for example, the survey, comparison of best practices, prototyping is one method, and so on. Every particular task needs the specific methods. So you have to use the correct methods. In each work must must consist a reasonable and reliable result. That I said about these two lines. What is the main result of your work? That is the important question you have to be able to answer. The structure of your work, roughly speaking, your work must consist 3 parts, approximately equally distributed. First is a setup of problem and the background of the problem. Second one is analytical part, I said, the review of alternatives and so on. And third one is the practical part. That is this part you have actually yourself done during your work. And of course, let's say the fourth part, not the least one, is conclusions or summary. You have to describe precisely what you have done, which answers have you find to your questions. So, and your work has also been correctly formatted. In the following slides I show one website where you can find the formatting requirements, and be careful with formatting of the work. I can pose examples where the work is well done, quite good work, but very badly formatted. At least the highest grade is excluded with the bad formatting. So, what kind of thesis should not be submitted? The most important one is the last point here. Plagiarism is a worst case. If the final committee finds that your work consists plagiarism, that the final grade is 0 without any question. So, but the other mistakes or common mistakes that are quite often made. First, the general essay is not the best case. That I said, your work must contain the original result also. If you only describe what the other authors have done in this field, that is essay and that should not be committed. Second one, on the first part, setup of problem, be very precise. If you do not clearly define your problem, then the reviewer will search for the problem what is analyzed. The committee will search for the problem, does not found it, and again you are not in the best situation. So, analytical part, work, which choices you have analyzed and compared. If what choices are not analyzed, that is also the drawback of the work. Next, all the sentences you write must be justified and adequately reasoned. That is your work must be on a certain level, the scientific work. So, and your contribution, again, these 2 lines must be underlined. The author's contribution must be clearly distinguishable. So, there must be the fundamental content in your work. That is, if you describe what others have done, what is your opinion, so on, many pages of the text, but no fundamental content. That is not the good work. And in pair with this point, your problem must be clearly defined. Plus, you have to got the fundamental content or the solution to the problem. So, and of course your work must be technically correct. How to find this subject or theme for your work? First, the subject must be in accordance with your curricula. In one way or another, it must consist the problems of cybersecurity. So try to find the problems on internship or in your working place or among your hobbies, so on. Next, you'll have to describe the problem with very briefly with 2-3 sentences. And of course, a good idea is to speak with other people, with your potential supervisors, collaborators, with your teachers, and so on, with your classmates, and so on. So you can get the good ideas about your subject you have chosen. Next, try to describe the potential solution or write up the vision of your work. So the next step are the analyzing part and choosing the appropriate methodology or the ways of solving of the task. So try to find the optimal methods for the solutions, and let's try to realize this method. And of course, the last point, try to describe how the world has changed during your great work. What is getting better after your work? And good idea is also to describe the future plans on this field. You can do these future plans yourself, or any next student can continue with this great work. So the best theses are found, the subject for the best thesis are found on the internship. During the internship, you solve some kind of working tasks. In your internship defense, you describe what kind of works have you done, what have you studied during the internship, and so on. But if you can generalize in some way or another way the results get on the internship, that is a quite appropriate subject for final thesis. For example, you can give the suggestion for upgrading of IT system in internship enterprise or something like this. So now more precisely the timetable for you and deadlines for doing some certain steps during the final work. First deadline is 24th of September. You will find on one Moodle course the draft of your work. You must fulfill it and submit on this date. Next step is to defend this draft. In the draft you will write your subject, your supervisor, and so on. follows the defense of the draft, where the committee decides is it appropriate or not, is it a good plans for the next step or not. If not, you get the advices from the committee, you can correct your draft and submit it again. So after the defense of the draft, the next step is a preliminary defense. Now, of course, in the meanwhile, you have to write this whole thesis according to this draft. On the beginning on December, you have submit the work for preliminary defense and follows the preliminary defense. On the preliminary defense, the committee decides is this work that is submitted in accordance with the requirements and will this work forwarded to the final defense or not. That is the most important decision of the preliminary defense committee. And if yes, if it will be forwarded to the final defense, this committee assigns the reviewer for each work. The reviewer is a person who will read your work carefully, make some critiques about this work, pose the questions to the author, and so on. So this step in red, submission in study information system. You have to describe in the web form which is your subject in Estonian, in English, who are your supervisors, and so on, and you have to submit it until this term. If not, you are not allowed to continue with the final defense. So it's why I have colored this with red. That is very important date. So on the beginning of the next year, you will submit your thesis to the final defense, and the final defense it's at the end of January. So the first condition for final defense of your work is that the committee of preliminary defense forwards your work to the final defense. But there are some other conditions also. Summarizing this slide, I can show that all the requirements of the curricula, except regarding the final defense of the work, all these requirements must be fulfilled. You have to pass all the mandatory exams and to collect the necessary number of credit points among the elective subjects. And all the results must be included into study information system. So that date you have seen, December the 13th, was submission into study information system of your application to the defense. So next you have submit the thesis for the final defense, and one obstacle is more. The chairman of the final defense is very important person. He has regret your application if he finds that your work is not in accordance with the requirements. Some advices to the final defense. Generally, the defense is ceremonial event, so it means your dress code must be appropriate and, very important, be in time. To be late is not allowed on the final defense. Be sure that all the materials needed are in hand. You have to present your work during 7-10 minutes, and the presentation is mandatory. That is, be sure that you have this presentation on your hand. So you have the time for your speech from 7 until 10 minutes, and try to be very punctual. Try to speak not less than 7 minutes and not more than 10 minutes. If you speak too fast, less than 7 minutes, and committee thinks that you have nothing to say. And another problem, if you speak to more than 10 minutes, then you can be interrupted by chairman. So, next advice, the length of your presentation might be also 7 until 10 slides. The optimal speed is 1 slide per minute. The mandatory parts of your presentation are also 3. First, since the setup of problem. Second, the methods. How you solve the problem. And third part is the results. That are mandatory parts. Of course, you can add some other parts if you have a time during the 7-10 minutes. Take into mind that the defense is covered by the chairman. That is, he says, now is your turn to speak, to answer the questions and so on. Do not yourself ask to pose the questions or any others, some kind of sentences. So if you are answering the questions from reviewer, from the committee, from other persons in the room, then try to be very punctual, and if possible, try to say in a short way the answers. At last, you have the final speech. That is not the time for discussing about anything, but that is the place where you can render thanks to all the contributors, to supervisor, to reviewers, to committee, so on. So, which are graded by committee on the final defense? Some points that you have presented on the previous slides. First, the actuality of the subject, the structure of your work. As I said, the very rough structure is 1/3 for introductory part, setup of problem, and background analysis, so on. Second part, second third of your work is analysis, and third part is your practical work plus corollaries or conclusions. The result of your work is graded, the formatting also, the performance of your presentation, how have you presented your work, your answering the questions, and the general opinion of you. And last, the opinions of reviewer and supervisor are also taken into account when grading your work. Here some important web pages. The main source of information is Moodle course. Moodle course under this address and registration key final thesis. That is mandatory to sign up yourself into this Moodle course. There you get the most appropriate information and the possibility to load your thesis or draft of your thesis and so on. And some not mandatory material, but very useful material. First, the material for Professor Ginnick. Will it open or not? about 3-4 pages. About 3-4 pages. Very useful hints to writing the graduate thesis. And Scriber, if you have taken my class fundamentals of thesis, then you have read this already, but on this, just a moment. Yes, here you can find on quite good way, structured way, many hints and suggestions for writing the thesis. Try to remove. And on this web link you can find the requirements for formatting, appropriate templates, and so on. That is very mandatory material for formatting of your thesis. So, thank you for attention. Have you any question to me?
So I wish to add a little bit also. I have 2 slides. Here.
Okay. Just a moment, take the microphone.
So, I wish to add only a very little information, not so much. Thomas said almost all about thesis, but I wish to add a little bit cybersecurity specifics. As you probably know, cybersecurity is property of all IT components, all IT systems. There are no IT systems where we do not deal with cybersecurity. But sometimes cybersecurity is a set of special techniques, set of special means, and so on. Therefore, these properties and these peculiarities has been set some specifics also to cybersecurity thesis. Consequently, if you start to do your thesis, there are, in my humble opinion, 3 main cases. The first case is the simplest and easiest case. Actually, thesis itself is dedicated to solving a certain cybersecurity issue. Second case is not so clear. Thesis is not dedicated to solving a cybersecurity issue, but the solution methods which you use in order to solve the problem, actual problem. The solution methods are chosen from the field of cybersecurity. The problem itself is from other areas, not cybersecurity areas, but solution methods are chosen from cybersecurity areas. But there are also third cases. Sometimes there has been such a cases that thesis itself is not dedicated to solving a cybersecurity issue and the solving methods, which you actually choose in order to solve the actual problems, are also not chosen from cybersecurity area, but during the solution, cybersecurity components, cybersecurity methods, cybersecurity demands plays important role. This is most complicated case. If your actual case for your actual thesis will be this one, I recommend you certainly prepare to prove the role and meaning of cybersecurity. My personal point of view is that if the rule and meaning of cybersecurity for solving your actual problem is essential, and you certainly know that it's essential, all is okay. If the rule and meaning is not essential, it is only one of the very many components which can be taken into account when you actually solve the actual problem, it is not a very clear case. There has been some cases in cybersecurity curriculum that there has been some works where cybersecurity methods are not clearly presented. It's my first message to you, and I have also a second message. Thomas talked about thesis itself, but I wish to point out also some things about defending speech. Thomas has already said that your aim, if you perform and assemble your thesis and do your defending speech, your actual aim is to define and solve a certain problem. If you compile your defending speech, please concentrate the following 3 items. At first, define the previous situation. In more exact words, please describe the situation before the actual solving of the problem. And please describe also the necessity for solving the problem, why you perform your work. And if your work is dedicated to cybersecurity, please try to include also cybersecurity components to this part. Even in this case, when the work is not fully dedicated for solving the cybersecurity problem. The second part, please describe shortly your analysis and choices you actually done during of your work. And my specific recommendation, because you are cybersecurity students, please define the rule and essence of cybersecurity also here. And the last one, please describe the result. And again, when the result is not in the field of cybersecurity, try to define the essence and rule of cybersecurity there. So, it's all from my side. All other things are already said by Thomas. And now maybe questions to Thomas or to me.
Yep.
How can I be sure that my topic is not being answered by anyone else before, or is it included in any other topics of other people?
On our library, you can find the whole set of diploma works, bachelor theses that are defended on your curricula. So you can compare your first subject with these works done already. You can also ask me on the address. I have written the whole list of graduation theses that are defended in our college. There are more than 1,000 of them. Defended, not only on the cybersecurity curricula, but also other curricula. Yes, it's possible. this requirement that all the subject must be done is regarding to the final defense. Of course, you can write your thesis on this semester and defense it on the next one. Please. Kas nüüd kaugutest saab ka keegi küsida või ei saa? Okay.
So, in this case, thank you very much. Thank you very much also from my side. And good luck in order to assemble your final thesis.
Yes.
Okay.
I hope that on the final defense you will see many more people than here.
Yeah, but I hope that all can look our presentation virtually.
That is